The TWSBI ECO was first released in 2014, and since that time it's been offered in a huge variety of colors and finishes, with a new version coming out nearly every year. The version that we have in front of us is called Indigo and Bronze, referring to the colors of the finial, cap, and trim pieces respectively. Also, since its release, it has come out in another variant, the ECO T, which features triangularly shaped finial, cap, and grip sections. The pen is primarily a demonstrator, meaning most of it is made out of a clear material, and it is a piston filler. The bottom finial is hexagonal in shape with a flat end piece, and in the center we can see the remnants of an injection molding gate. The top finial is also flat and hexagonal in shape, and in the middle we can see the TWSBI logo. This one is silk screened on top, but the majority of ECOs have this as just an injection molded piece. The cap is then straight all the way down with a bent metal clip that has a cutout in the middle. It is a springy clip and very functional. Towards the bottom of the cap, it transitions to a rounded portion, and then we have a cap band which reads TWSBI ECO BRZ, referring to bronze, and Taiwan. The cap comes off in one turn to reveal a stainless steel nib. Mine is colored in bronze, but the majority of ECOs will have this with a silver color. The top of the nib has some scroll work, followed by the TWSBI logo, TWSBI, and then the size of the tipping material. I have this one in a 1.1 stub, but it's available in a wide variety of other sizes. And on the back, we have a black plastic feed. The section starts with a rounded portion, which is there to meet up with the cap liner and provide a good seal. We then have a flare-up, which is triangular in shape, followed by a tapering grip section, and then threads that are smooth to the touch. Then we see an O-ring, which is there to secure the cap in place, followed by a step up to the barrel. The barrel is then straight all the way down to another O-ring to secure the cap when posting, and then we have the end finial, which doubles as a piston knob. If I give the end finial a counterclockwise turn, the piston rod will extend inside the barrel. Towards the front of the barrel, we can see ribs, which are there to provide some structural support, but they also reduce the diameter of the barrel and act as a hard stop, which prevents the head of the piston from reaching the grip section. If I give the piston knob a clockwise turn, the rod will retract and the head will move towards the back of the pen. In the hand, the pen is a very nice length. It's fairly lightweight and a little bit back heavy when there isn't ink inside, but once you fill up this pen, the balance is just about perfect. The cap posts securely thanks to that O-ring, but not very deeply. I find that it makes the pen quite long and does backweight the pen a little bit. In terms of size comparisons, here's the TWSBI ECO, a typical Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. Before we get into the disassembly of the TWSBI ECO, I wanted to take a moment here to compare it with a few other fountain pens. Up top, we have the TWSBI Vac Mini, which is a compact vacuum filling fountain pen and a little bit higher in the price bracket than the TWSBI ECO. We can see it is significantly shorter than the ECO when it's capped. Next, we have the Lamy 2000, which is a very well-known piston filler. It's primarily made out of black macrolon, and it features a gold nib, and it is significantly more expensive than the ECO, but it is about the same length when it's capped. And then at the bottom, we have the Lamy Safari, which is another entry-level fountain pen that's fairly comparable in price to the ECO. In its cap form, it is a little bit longer than the ECO. The TWSBIs in this case are the only ones that are demonstrator models, but the Safari is also offered in a Vista model, which is completely transparent. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps removed. Both of the TWSBIs have caps that unscrew, and the Lamys both have caps that pull off. In their uncapped form, the TWSBI Vac Mini is by far the shortest, followed by the Lamy 2000, and then the Lamy Safari, and the TWSBI ECO is the longest of the bunch. The Safari features a triangular shaped grip section, which more closely matches the TWSBI ECO T. The Lamy 2000 has a grip section that tapers all the way back, and the TWSBI VAC Mini has a grip section that is straight, followed by a step up to the barrel. Let's take a closer look at these nibs. All pens, with the exception of the Lamy 2000, have stainless steel nibs. The Lamy 2000 has a semi-hooded 14 karat gold nib. The TWSBIs have nibs that are interchangeable. And the Lamy Safari has a nib that is swappable with just about every other fountain pen that Lamy makes, with the exception of the Ion and the Lamy 2000. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps posted. All caps post securely. The VAC Mini is the only one with a screw to post cap. The VAC Mini is the shortest pen when it's posted, followed closely by the Lamy 2000, and then the Safari is significantly longer than the 2000, but the ECO actually is a little bit longer when it's posted than the Safari. To disassemble the TWSBI ECO, you will need some grippy materials as well as the wrench that came in the box. The cap unscrews, and if we take a look inside, we can see there is a plastic cap liner. That one is friction fit, so I don't recommend removing it, and if you need to clean this, I just recommend running this under warm water. To remove the nib and feed, gently grab it with your gripping material and give it a pull. At this point, the nib and feed can be separated. And then if we want to remove the piston unit, we're going to give the piston knob a counterclockwise turn. Doing so will reveal two flaps, which we can grab a hold of with our wrench. I'm going to screw the piston knob down onto the wrench so it's tight, and then give it a clockwise turn. Pretty soon the entire piston unit will come out. I'll release that wrench by loosening up the piston knob. And I don't recommend disassembling this any further. For regular maintenance, I would just silicone grease the head as well as the threads for smooth operation. But if you want to disassemble it further, you can. Give the piston knob a counterclockwise turn, and soon the rod itself will come out, followed by the knob, a key, and a connector piece. At this point, the pen is fully disassembled. To reassemble, we're going to start with our connector piece and our key. The key slides into the back. If you aren't sure what side to put it on, the front side has a slot and it's too small to fit that key. Next, we'll attach our knob. And you're going to want to screw this knob down just about until you reach the flats at the bottom of the threads. That looks pretty good. We'll grab our rod and insert it into the front of the connector, and then give the piston knob a clockwise turn until the rod is retracted as far as you can. What we're looking for is for the piston knob to butt up against this flange when the rod is fully retracted. We do have a little bit of a gap. That's going to slightly reduce the amount of ink you can pull into the pen. So I'm going to unscrew the piston knob until the rod comes out. Loosen up the piston knob a little bit, and then we'll put the rod back in. Got rotated, there you go. And then screw the piston knob back down. That looks just about perfect. We'll grab our barrel, insert the piston into it, and give the piston knob a counterclockwise turn. Doing so will screw the connector piece into the barrel, and as you reach the bottom of those threads, the piston head will extend. With that piston head extended, we can grab a hold of the flats with our TWSBI wrench and give it a counterclockwise turn until it's finger tight. That feels good. At this point, the piston should be fully functional. That looks great. And then for the nib and feed, at the back of the feed is a ridge which the nib lines up to. That will help prevent the nib from traveling too far down on the feed. And what I like to do is bring my grip up towards the front so that I can feel that triangular grip, and then line the nib and feed up to that. Lastly, we'll attach our cap. And now we're ready to ink up. Inking up the TWSBI ECO, today I selected Diamine Polar Glow, and I do have a swatch of this one. It's a nice turquoise ink with a lot of red sheen, and I think it matches the indigo pretty closely. We'll take the cap off the bottle and the pen. Make sure the piston head is extended all the way down. Submerge the nib into the ink and then screw up the piston head. And I did create a separate video showing how to fill this pen, but also how to get a super fill where you get rid of all air pockets. So I'll be sure to link that as well. We're going to extend the head back down and then draw it back up to try and get our max fill without doing a super fill. That looks great. I'll go ahead and wipe off our nib. And cap up our bottle. And our pen. And now we're ready to write. Okay, writing with the TWSBI ECO, cap unscrews. And today we are writing with a stainless steel 1.1 stub. And I really like this nib. It's well tuned, it's smooth, it's fairly stiff, but it also gives you nice character lines with that stub, and it doesn't have a knife edge, which is something that is fairly rare to see on stub units. Our ink. Again is Diamine Polar Glow. For flex, I'll turn the page. You naturally get some line variation because it is a stub, but I'm not getting any flex. And for reverse writing. It's actually pretty smooth, and the feed is keeping up just fine. You do maybe get a thinner line when you reverse write, but really, if you want a thinner line, just alter the direction that you're writing with the pen. So what do I think of the TWSBI ECO? I really like this pen, and I actually really appreciate the historical significance of this model. Prior to the TWSBI ECO, the majority of piston filling fountain pens were very expensive and primarily made by German companies like Montblanc, Lamy, and Pelican, or Japanese pens like the Pilot Custom Heritage 92 and the Sailor Rialo. This pen made piston filling fountain pens mainstream, and I greatly appreciate that. I also really like the fact that it's available in many different colors and finishes. That means that you can really pick and choose your pen to mix and match with your inks. And if you are one that likes to collect all the different variants of a certain pen, this one will keep you satisfied for many years to come. I love the fact that it's a clear demonstrator that makes it so that you can easily see your ink and enjoy watching it slosh around, but also appreciate the way that the piston unit actually works. And speaking of that piston unit, I love the fact that TWSBI decided to include a wrench to make it easily removable and maintainable. And then I also really enjoy this nib. Yes, it is stiff, but it is very well tuned. It's smooth with a little bit of feedback, and this stub specifically is one of my favorite stub units. It gives you really nice line variation, and you don't have to worry too much about rotating the nib while you're writing because it doesn't really have a sharp knife edge to it. Now, is the ECO the perfect pen? No, I don't think so. I think there's certainly room for improvement, and I'll go over some of those right now. This pen specifically, the Indigo with Bronze, has a bronze colored nib. And while I really love this nib, TWSBI does not offer replacement nibs in this color. They only offer replacement silver nibs. So if you wanted to swap this out with a different size, you are kind of stuck with something that looks a little bit like a mismatch. Also, as I mentioned, in the hand, the pen is quite light, and honestly, it feels a little bit cheap. The starting price for TWSBI ECOs are usually around 30 bucks. This one comes in closer to 50, which for an injection molded pen with a stainless steel nib is kind of a high price. I wish at the very least that TWSBI would consider using a rolled acrylic instead. That way you can get rid of seams like what you can see right here. Also, another drawback with this pen is the fact that there's such a small opening between the barrel and the grip section, and the grip section isn't removable. That means in order to clean out this pen, you're basically stuck resorting to removing the piston unit, which, as I mentioned, is pretty easy, luckily, because of this wrench, but also a little bit unnecessary. And speaking of removing that piston unit, I don't mind removing it, and like I mentioned, it's very easy to maintain and grease up, but also fully disassembling it shows you that it is a little bit tricky and requires some trial and error to get the piston knob aligned properly with the rod. I wish that TWSBI would have maybe looked a little bit more closely at the Lamy 2000, which is my benchmark for disassembling piston units. Once you get all the pieces together on the Lamy 2000, you can't assemble it wrong. And another thing with this pen, I do like the fact that it posts. That is an improvement over the TWSBI 580, but it also doesn't post very deeply. I wish that this cap would have posted somewhat closer to about this location. I think then it would be a very usable pen when it's posted. So maybe if you have small hands, consider that, especially if you like posting pens. If you have large hands, it might not bother you that the pen becomes so long. And then lastly, probably my biggest gripe with this pen are these ribs that are at the front of the barrel. As I showed, it prevents you from getting a full fill without having to do a hack to get a super fill. And I think that's a miss. I wish that they would have gotten rid of these ribs or maybe considered a different design that would have given you structural support without having to have them. And then one other thing to note with the TWSBI ECO, while I do love that it's offered in many different colors, you can't get this in anything other than a demonstrator. So if this look is not for you, this model really isn't for you either. But overall, I really do like the TWSBI ECO. This is actually a pen that I've now rebought. I originally had the black version and the color didn't quite speak to me. But then when I saw this Indigo and Bronze come out, I decided that that's one that I really needed in my collection. And I also really appreciate that they made barrel filling systems as well as disassemblable systems mainstream, which opened up the market to all the amazing pens that we now see. And at its price point, this has pretty much become a staple for any newcomer, as well as experienced collector of fountain pens. And that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.